everyone. We come up now with the topic on joint promise, which is the meeting 7, and I hope you enjoy the current topic. Yeah. Um, any one of joint promisors might be compelled to perform. When two or more persons make a joint promise, then the promisee might, in the absence of express agreements to the contrary, compel any one or more of such joint promisors to perform the whole promise. Each promisor might compel contribution. Each of two or more joint promisors might compel every other joint promisor to contribute equally with himself to the performance of the promise, unless a contrary intention appears from the contract. So, what's happened with the devolution of joint liabilities? That will also happen when two or more persons have made a joint promise. Then, unless a contrary intention appears by the contract, all such persons during the joint lives and after the death of any of them, his representative jointly with the survivor or survivors, and after the death of the last survivor, the representatives of all jointly must fulfill the promise. Does any one of joint promisors might be compelled to perform? When you share of loss by default in contribution, this happens if any one of two or more joint promisors make default in such contribution. The remaining joint promisors might bear the loss arising from such default in equal shares. The explanation of the situation is that nothing in this section shall prevent a surely from recovering from his principal payments made by the surety on behalf of the principal, or entitle the principal to recover anything from the surety on account of payment made by the principal. What's happened if the effect of release of joint promisor? So where two or more persons have made a joint promise, a release of one of such joint promisors by the promisee does not necessarily discharge the other joint promisor. Neither does it free the joint promisor, so release from responsibility to the other joint promisors or joint promisors. In the case of devolution of joint rights, when a person has made a promise to two or more persons jointly, then unless contrary intention appears from the contract, the right to claim performance rests as between him and them, with them during their joint lives and after the death of any of them, with the representative of such deceased person jointly with the survivor or survivors, and after the death of the last survivor, with the representative of all jointly. And the topic of, we are now come up with the topic of performance of reciprocal performances. Promises which form consideration or part of the consideration for each other are called reciprocal promises. The first one, when you simultaneously reciprocal promises, where two promises are to be performed simultaneously, then they are known as mutual or concurrent, means happen against. When a contract consists of reciprocal promises to be simultaneously performed, a promisor need not perform his promise unless the promisee is ready and willing to perform his reciprocal promise. And back to the rules of acceptance on page 9, on page 8 of your PPT slide that I distribute to your email, acceptance must be given only by the person to whom the offer is made. And acceptance must also be absolute and unqualified. It should be communicated by the acceptor. So that is actually acceptance should be communicated by the acceptor, and acceptance should be given within reasonable time or time stipulated. So for example, the length of you have 2 weeks to accept the offer of employment offer. That's an example. Beyond that, the employer will consider another candidate. Acceptance must succeed the offer as well. What's happened on the issue of acceptance of offers? Acceptance of an offer is a final, and once an offer is accepted, then the contract is in existence. So you have to communicate that you accept the offer, and can only be revoked if the parties agree. However, there are 5 key rules relating to the valid acceptance of an offer. The first one, the offer can only be accepted by the offeree. The offeree can be employee or representative of the employee, the authorized person to send the offering letter. The second one, the acceptance must be absolute and unqualified. The third one, acceptance must be communicated to the offeror, and acceptance must generally be in the form that the offeror specified. So it has to be specific on the clause, specific on the date, and when is actually the offer will be valid. The last one is the offer must still be in existence when it is accepted. So within the time frame or time period of the agreeable contract. What's happened on page 10, which is actually the acceptance by the offeree, means that only the person to whom the offer is made might accept the offer. So it's very specific to each individual. And the term and the condition of the final offer must be absolute and unqualified, as it is explained on page 11 of your PPT slide. Does it the acceptance must be communicated to the offeror? On page 12, it's described this matter, which is the communication can be orally or in writing. However, in my personal opinions and experience, you should have the contract in written as well. And it can, or for example, if you have a verbal offer or a verbal acceptance, you need to follow immediately with acceptance or offering letter or on paper. Yeah, and it can also take the form of conduct. For example, in the case of Carlyle versus Carbolic Smoke Ball Company, the purchase of the remedy was acceptance of the term of the offer. Silence does not constitute of the acceptance, so you need to communicate. You have to verbally say, as well as followed by a written acceptance letter. I did before that. I also mentioned that I'm sending acceptance letter because I'm interested with the job. Therefore, I'm sending the acceptance letter. Yeah. Where there is no form specified, then reasonable method of communication will be accepted. So acceptance must generally be in the form that the offeror is going to be specified. Thank you very much, and looking forward for the next subject. Thank you for having me. See you in the next meeting.